Hey guys, the next sponsor is Ledger, and Ledger is running a 40% off Black Friday week sale. So if you haven't gotten your Ledger yet, you are in luck. For the week of the 23rd through the 30th, you can get 40% off of all Ledgers on the Ledger website. So if you are still using a hot wallet, or you're just looking to get a backup, maybe for a multi-sig or just for some more redundancy, now is the time to go get that Ledger. There's a link in the show notes that can get you that 40% off Black Friday deal. If you want to live a bankless life, you need to get a hardware wallet. There is no alternative for storing your crypto in a self-sovereign fashion. That's why I have 4 ledgers that I use to manage my different crypto assets using the Ledger Live account as well. Ledger Live is like your home base for managing your Ethereum, DeFi, and crypto accounts. It does a really good job of aggregating all of your different Ethereum wallets if you are the type of person that uses more than one. But you can also add other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or Cosmos or whatever your preferred blockchain is. And then it will display an aggregate portfolio of all your accounts at the main page. One thing that Ledger is doing a really good job of is enabling all the money verbs that me and Ryan talk about with the Bankless Skill Cube enabled in the Ledger Live app. So right now in the Ledger Live app, you can buy, sell, lend, swap, and stake your crypto assets, which is doing a really good job of fulfilling all of the money verbs in the Bankless Skill Cube. Something that's new to Ledger Live is Ledger Swap, where you can swap assets one for another directly inside the Ledger Live application, ensuring trustlessness in your financial activity on Ethereum and on Bitcoin. If you want to learn more about what you can do with a ledger, go to the blog post, The Power of Ledger Live on the Ledger website, where they share some of the more advanced things that you can do with your ledger that you might not have known about. There's a link in the show notes that will take you to the Ledger shop where you can get your preferred Ledger hardware wallet. I personally like the Ledger Nano X, but I also have both. They're both great options. When you own a ledger, you own your own assets in the way that they have been designed to be held by the user and the user alone. So go get your ledger today to make sure that you are as self-sovereign as possible. The Bankless State of the Nations are brought to you by YEARN. YEARN is DeFi's first self-building community-run project, which I just get really, really excited about. YEARN is a system that seeks out yield in DeFi, and it does that in a number of different ways. A very aggressive way is with the vaults, where you can deposit your preferred asset of choice, and different DeFi experts will come in and generate a strategy for what to do with your deposited token, right? And so it'll go find ways to get yield in that deposited token in DeFi. For those who want to just earn yield on their stablecoins, the EARN system is for you, where you can deposit your preferred stablecoin and YEARN will go and figure out which money market on DeFi in DeFi is producing the best interest rate, whether it's DYDX, it's Compound, or Aave. It looks around DeFi to see where the yield is coming from, and it directs stablecoins automatically so you don't have to. Check them out at yearn.finance to get started, and also check out the stats page to see what other people are doing as well.
All right, Bankless Nation, welcome back. It's not only Bitcoin that is in full
Send.
beast mode.
Full send.
It's full send. It's also Ether that has gone full send as well. David and I are here to talk about this. David, let's start with that number. 524,288 ETH.
Right.
What is the significance of that number?
That is the number of Ether that we needed it to have gotten deposited into the deposit contract last night. We absolutely blew that number out of the water. We were talking a while ago, a couple weeks ago, I guesstimated like 85% chance probability that we'd make it. You said 95% chance. The fact that we exceeded that number by like 25% more Ether than what was needed, this probably makes me think that the probability was even higher than 95%.
David, I felt a little nervous. I'm going to be honest. Yeah. The last probably maybe like 3 days before or so, because look, when you've got a reputation like we have, David, which is absolutely stellar, and you put guesses, sparkly, like indisputed, basically, and you put percentages of 80% probability or like 95% probability, right? And you're wrong. Yeah, it doesn't feel great, right? It's a scar, and it looked like things weren't happening as quickly as we thought. Even when we had Eric Connor on, it was funny because we had Eric Connor on. We were talking about like patriotic duty to stake and this sort of thing. And Eric Connor like leads Ether, I think. And even he was like, well, guys, it only makes sense from a pragmatic investor perspective if you're making the returns. But the funny thing about it was, um, Eric's tweet like 2 days ago was basically like, oh, change of plans. I've gone into staking. Like, I'm doing this for real. Forget yield farmings. And he stepped up as well in a big way. And I think many in the Ethereum community did. And this is just the Ethereum community delivering. That's what makes me more bullish than the actual numbers here. It's like the community came together collectively to go accomplish something. And not only did it do it technically, but it did it socially in getting this contract funded. And now we have ETH2, December 1st, 2020. That is going to be the launch date for this new internet bond. And it's super bullish.
Yeah, and you know what I think happened is like the deposits ticked up slowly, right? And it was, if it ticked up at the rate that it started to, and if it continued that, it was totally going to miss. We weren't going to get there. But as that happened, the spots to fill became more scarce, right? Because if you're not in the deposit contract by the time the deadline hits, then you are got to wait in line, right? So I think all of a sudden people like saw that first it started going slowly and then it ticked up a little bit in speed, still wasn't enough. But then it just like burst because the FOMO kicked in. Like FOMO of being part of ETH2 kicked in, and it kicked in really, really hard. So like I said in the intro to this show, like just a massive vote of confidence to how strongly the community is rallying behind like the desires for ETH2. Like there's a lot of external FUD coming, like especially coming from like Bitcoiners who are like, does the Ethereum community even want Ethereum 2? Like how do the Ethereum developers even know that like the Ethereum 2.0 is interesting to the Ethereum community? Which to me is just like a total disconnect from reality. But if there was any debate about what the Ethereum community wants, look at the numbers. Like we want ETH2. We want it. We want it really bad.
We want ETH2. Absolutely. All right. So here's something else I think that kind of combats the FUD and is basically a headwind going into the bull run for Ethereum. Over the last, 3 years, this whole bear market, the narrative has spread that ETH2 will never ship. It cannot ship. ETH is too slow. Every single Ethereum killer, so-called, started with this premise that basically we can develop, Ethereum is a great idea, but we can develop faster than Ethereum.
We can do ETH2 better and faster than Ethereum can.
Yes. And, hundreds of $1 million of like projects were based on this entire premise.
EOS,
like,
$4 billion ICO.
Right. That ETH would never ship, would never be able to conquer
Definity,
this. So
Near, like Polkadot. Like how many do we want to list? All of them.
They're still out there. They're still out there. So, and then what happened? It shipped. It shipped.
Oops.
And not only did it ship, this is not the entire like ETH2 vision, the Serenity vision, but the hardest part. Like talk to Justin Drake, talk to Danny Ryan, who we talked to, talk to Vitalik. They will all tell you that this phase 0 is the absolute hardest part to get right, because this is Danny called it the heartbeat, or like the brain of the operation. This is the consensus layer right here. And this is the launch of staking. So when you get that right, I'm not saying, the next phases just fall into place magically. It'll still take some time, but this was the big thing for the ETH community to overcome. And we've overcome. Now it hasn't launched yet. So December 1st is another milestone here, but we've got a date now, and now the smart contracts are in charge. So that's what dictates what's going to happen next.
Yeah, the ETH2 will never ship. Like all of a sudden, if you are still saying that, like you have so much responsibility to prove that statement. Like right now, the default position is that ETH2 is shipping, right? And the market is starting to price that in, right?
Tell me about price, David.
Hang on, we're gonna get there. We can't talk about price yet because there's so many things to talk about as to why the price is doing the thing that it's doing right now. One of them is just the removal of execution risk of Ethereum 2.0. Right, like that's a huge thing. So there's no way like people can still be legitimately saying that ETH2 will never ship unless you have some sort of crazy knowledge that the rest of us don't have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely going to start ship. It's already out there, so they can't say that. Yep. Like, where do you want to start with this then, David?
I want to start with this. And so in 2017. The bull market had this underpinning of like, dude, we're going to be able to stake Ether like in 6 months, right? In 2018. Yeah. It's coming in 2018. And
Is
so
that what you thought?
That's what I thought. I was stacking my ether in order to prepare for staking. And so
I was too.
Yeah, right. And then it never came. Right. And then like the bull market kind of ended. The ICOs are not a very good mechanism to capture value over the long term. They're very fleeting. If ICOs stop making people money, then people are going to leave. And that's exactly what happened. And staking didn't come in order to absorb that capital soon enough, right? Like staking is coming like in like 7 days. Like we missed that mark by roughly 3 years, like whoops. But the whole underpinning of the bull market was by the prospect of staking ETH and getting a return and ether scarcity as a result of that. And that was happening towards the tail end of 2017 bull run. Like that was at the end of the bull run. Now staking is here really even before the bull run for 2020 is really getting started. Like to me, the price action now is just a return to the norm, a return to fair values. Bull markets always happen when we shoot above and beyond that. But to me, like staking is happening before retail rather than after retail, but before people flood in, not afters. And so like the whole like genesis and development of Ethereum 2, all of the energy and capital and attention that got devoted to Ethereum killers back in 2017 and 2018, that's not going to exist. That's just going to exist onto Ethereum. That capital and energy is going to be directed towards Ethereum about the excitement of Ethereum 2.0. And instead of trying to fund your average Ethereum killer, it's much more likely that capital gets deployed to trying to build some sort of crazy awesome application on Ethereum. That's just a much more likely outcome in my eyes.
And we're already seeing it absorb capital. You know, I tweeted this out. Let me share this with you, David, because this is super cool, I think. Mm-hmm. So one way to look at how much capital staking has absorbed is to look at sort of like we've called it the internet bond and the bond market. And if you look at the domestic bond market of other nations and you like chart all of the nations and how much in terms of bonds they've issued, Ether right now at launch will be somewhere between El Salvador and Venezuela in size. So if you plot it on kind of nations, it is number 145 with a $314 million bond market.
Actually, I just reran the numbers because the numbers in the deposit contract have gone up and Ether price has gone up. We are now at $390 million in the market cap of deposits.
Well, you know what? Then we just passed St. Lucia. And we're right behind.
Apex predator of bond markets today, baby. Just working our way up the line.
We're trailing Uzbekistan. Okay, so now we're at 143. Not too bad. So this is what I mean. Of course, the non-sovereign bond market is absolutely massive. We've estimated it like 57 trillion with a T inside. And of course, the big apex predator in the bond market is treasuries, the old T-bills. That's number one. But this is another interesting way of looking at the capital absorption of it. And David, there's another thing that wasn't present in 2017, and that is this: DeFi. It was just a glimmer. I mean, like you saw a hint of it. I always argue that the 2017 ICOs were a form of DeFi, right? It was permissionless fundraising, primitive, and it was very primitive in that sense of the word too, because like there wasn't sufficient alignment between investors and stakeholders, right? That was just the start of DeFi. Now we have a robust DeFi ecosystem. So what will that do you think, as a headwind going into the bull market?
Yeah, and in stark contrast to the 2017 ICO mania, like I said, the capital going into Ethereum, that was the thing that pumped Ether to $1,400, that capital was fleeting. People didn't give a flying fuck about what Ethereum was or about bankless values or about self-sovereign money management. They saw ICO's number go up and they wanted to play the game. And when it became obvious that the game was like wrapping up and coming to a close and that people were making less money than they were making more money, then people left, right? There was nothing sticky about Ethereum, right? There's no reason to hold your capital there. Again, MakerDAO wasn't created until December of 2017. And even in December of 2017, it had like a couple $1 million worth of ETH in it. DeFi as a term wasn't even coined until the middle of 2018. And then we kind of retroactively said that like, okay, well, DeFi kind of started with MakerDAO, which means it started in basically the last 2 weeks of 2017. So we can call it started in 2018. Ethereum hasn't had a place to deposit capital and have it be sticky in any bull market ever, right? Ever. And so like the whole, and like Uniswap has never seen a bull market, and Uniswap is as an application on Ethereum is one of the applications that locks up the most amount of value. Same thing with MakerDAO. Like right now there is 2.75 billion in MakerDAO. There's 1.7 billion in Compound, 1.5 billion in Aave, 1.3 billion in Uniswap, half a billion in Balancer, half a billion in Synthetics, 0.8 billion in YEARN. Nexus is up there as well. We had none of these things in 2017. And now in 2020, we have so many places for capital to come to Ethereum and then stay there and get sticky inside of an AMM or inside of some sort of collateralized lending position that when I see $1 coming into Ethereum, I see like, maybe 20 cents leaving in 4 years. Rather in 2017, I see $1 coming in, I see $1 going out.
People aren't going to exit once they enter.
They're going to be bankless
ecosystem, right? I mean, even if you, obviously there's going to be a speculative type bubble in many DeFi tokens. That's totally obvious. But even if you invest in those things and then exit because the market gets over exuberant, out of control, are you going to exit into fiat in your Wells Fargo account, right? Or are you going to exit to a stable coin on crypto rails? Right. Now that you know how to use all of this stuff and deposit it into some DeFi protocol and get like a 3 to 4% return versus your Wells Fargo account that's giving you nothing, 0%. Like the people in this bull run who come to DeFi, what you're saying, to come to Ethereum are actually going to stay after the dust settles because there's a reason to stay, right? Like you cross the bridge and there's a whole carnival here. Now you can like set up shop. You can hang out. Like this is the frontier. Make a tent, right? So
water's fine.
Totally different than 2017. And I think that's bullish too.
You know what else is not is here in 2020 that wasn't here in the 2017 bull run?
Bankless. You and me, David.
It was Bankless. That's exactly right.
That's not what you're going to say.
No, that's exactly 100% what I was going to say. There are two people that people love to watch that shill all of DeFi and tell people about how to live a bankless life. And so they're going to come in and they're going to be like, I'm interested about Ethereum. What's this Uniswap thing? Where do I go to learn about it? They're going to find Bankless and they're going to learn about living a bankless life. And they're going to be compelled by that argument. And then they are going to keep their capital in Ethereum to base on that narrative.
As a bankless community, we are creating a narrative here and a shared experience here. And David and I, when you see us on these things or when we're talking, just the tip of the iceberg of the bankless community. We have bankless members in Russia converting bankless content into Russian and distributing that on like Telegram. We have bankless members in France spreading the message that way. And they've created a whole kind of like, David and I are just we are just one small part of this movement in trying to like propagate it. But this movement didn't even exist in 2017 because DeFi didn't exist in 2017. It was just associated with like ICOs and scam projects, right? And so we are planting a flag in the ground. If you're watching this, I hope like you are too, to say, we're not just speculating in this asset class. That's part of it. Of course, there's going to be upside and opportunities. But we're setting up shop here. Like this is, we're settling here. This is our home. Like we are claiming this vast open white space and creating a new economy here. That's what I intend to do for the next decade, man. Yeah. So
absolutely. Like I actually think that's one of the getting a narrative across during a bull market is really important. Like that's actually why we started promoting the whole Moloch thing. So like we had attention and we wanted to direct that attention towards the concept of like human coordination failure.
Well, I love that quote that you say so much, right? Which is basically, don't let me butcher it, but you said the most bullish thing for Bitcoin and Ether is to be understood.
That's exactly right.
Right. And like, that's the same is true of DeFi and this bankless movement.
And the theses that we have put out on the Bankless program, the protocol sync thesis, the Ether, the triple point asset thesis, like the concepts and ideas that we put out so far have been proven right. And so long as they continue to be proven right, like I think that the Bankless narrative will continue to be proven out and more people are compelled by theses that are proven, right?
Oh my God, dude. Thank God that contract made it and we made it so we weren't wrong on a 95% prediction, David. That would have destroyed our entire reputation around these things.
Gone down to zero.
We would have gone. End of Bankless. All right. Stable coins, we already talked about. That's,
If you want to live a bankless life, you need to get a hardware wallet. There is no alternative for storing your crypto in a self-sovereign fashion. That's why I have 4 ledgers that I use to manage my different crypto assets using the Ledger Live account as well. Ledger Live is like your home base for managing your Ethereum, DeFi, and crypto accounts. It does a really good job of aggregating all of your different Ethereum wallets if you are the type of person that uses more than one. But you can also add other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or Cosmos or whatever your preferred blockchain is. And then it will display an aggregate portfolio of all your accounts at the main page. One thing that Ledger is doing a really good job of is enabling all the money verbs that me and Ryan talk about with the Bankless Skill Cube enabled in the Ledger Live app. So right now in the Ledger Live app, you can buy, sell, lend, swap, and stake your crypto assets, which is doing a really good job of fulfilling all of the money verbs in the Bankless Skill Cube. Something that's new to Ledger Live is Ledger Swap, where you can swap assets one for another directly inside the Ledger Live application, ensuring trustlessness in your financial activity on Ethereum and on Bitcoin. If you want to learn more about what you can do with a ledger, go to the blog post, The Power of Ledger Live on the Ledger website, where they share some of the more advanced things that you can do with your ledger that you might not have known about. There's a link in the show notes that will take you to the Ledger shop where you can get your preferred Ledger hardware wallet. I personally like the Ledger Nano X, but I also have both. They're both great options. When you own a ledger, you own your own assets in the way that they have been designed to be held by the user and the user alone. So go get your ledger today to make sure that you are as self-sovereign as possible. The Bankless State of the Nations are brought to you by YEARN. YEARN is DeFi's first self-building community-run project, which I just get really, really excited about. YEARN is a system that seeks out yield in DeFi, and it does that in a number of different ways. A very aggressive way is with the vaults, where you can deposit your preferred asset of choice, and different DeFi experts will come in and generate a strategy for what to do with your deposited token, right? And so it'll go find ways to get yield in that deposited token in DeFi. For those who want to just earn yield on their stablecoins, the EARN system is for you, where you can deposit your preferred stablecoin and YEARN will go and figure out which money market on DeFi in DeFi is producing the best interest rate, whether it's DYDX, it's Compound, or Aave. It looks around DeFi to see where the yield is coming from, and it directs stablecoins automatically so you don't have to. Check them out at yearn.finance to get started, and also check out the stats page to see what other people are doing.
We already talked about that's, it's interesting. Like Nick Carter wrote an article for Bankless where he argued the case, this is back in December of last year, that stablecoins might actually be parasitic to Ether. Mm-hmm. And now it seems like, and he was laying out the case. So he didn't, to be fair to Nick, he didn't totally subscribe to it at that time. But we just talked to him and he laid out the opposite case, right, that stablecoins are in fact bullish for Ether, right, which is super interesting. Now we have almost 20 billion worth of stablecoins on Ethereum.
One transaction away from purchasing Ether. All stablecoins on Ethereum are one transaction away from purchasing Ether. 20 billion.
Pretty crazy. None of that existed in 2017. Right.
Yep. And as the global demand for dollars increases, which it definitely is, it's going to that need is going to be serviced by Ethereum. And so it's just growing the tentacles.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So there's also some additional alpha to be found in Ethereum. This is one of the points you raised to me when we were talking about this episode. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that, David?
Yeah. So I had a friend text me, a college friend, non-crypto. And so I'm starting to get texts, right? Which is kind of how we know like retail starting to arrive. And he expressed that his being bummed about how he missed the boat on Bitcoin, right? He missed the party. And I told him like, well, no, you shouldn't think that because you haven't. The party's ahead of us. However, it doesn't matter that regardless, retail people and people coming into this space after about hearing Bitcoin for 12 years now, up to 12 years now, like they heard Bitcoin back in 2013, they heard about it in 2015, 2017, and they still haven't bought it. So that cognitive dissonance about buying Bitcoin now, even though they've already known about this asset for like 7, 8, 9 years, and Bitcoin is at this crazy high price tag of almost $20,000, there's going to be some cognitive dissonance there. And this is always true about bull markets. It's like people try and it's like, well, damn it, I missed the boat on Bitcoin. I'm going to buy this illiquid token that's going to pump 100x so I can like get up to where I would have been if I had bought Bitcoin back at $1,000. And those financial opportunities are DeFi tokens on Ethereum.
Yes, I totally agree. That is bullish, the asset class. Now, but I do have a worry about that too, David, which is XRP price has been pumping.
Yeah.
And so your friend, unless he takes time to understand why Bitcoin and ETH are as valuable as they are and understand a little bit about capital assets and the DeFi ecosystem, the ways we sort of define things, that education path, then they could be like, oh, XRP is less than $1. It seems like the next Bitcoin. And by the way, this crypto YouTuber who has like 10,000, 100,000 followers, like subscribers, says that XRP is going to be the next big thing.
And then $1,000.
That's my worry for retail. Like, guys, if you're listening to this, don't let your friends who text you fall down these paths, because those roads lead to a lot of pain and destruction.
Yeah. And there's also, I think Ripple and other companies that benefit from these type of trades like are definitely culpable, and like they're definitely leading. They're not doing it on purpose, but like they could be doing a better educational effort in making sure that the people that are purchasing their token are doing a more informed decision-making process, which they're
I definitely think Ripple's doing it on purpose.
Oh yeah, but totally. However,
some are not.
So Ripple, like you expressed this concern that Ripple just pumped and Litecoin also just pumped. I actually don't think that's retail. I think that it is traders positioning themselves because that's what they think retail will buy. And I don't actually think we know what retail will buy this time around. I think that's an unknown quantity rather than a known quantity.
I actually agree with you there. I don't think we've seen retail enter. I think most of this has been institutions and people that were already bullish, crypto doubling down on it.
Sorry to interject. The people that have had come in that are new are people that were around in 2017 and then fully exited. And then those are the low-hanging fruit coming back. So that's maybe the people that are coming back.
That's who I'm getting the text messages from.
Yeah.
Right. So like you kind of worry when you start to, it used to be when you start to hear from a taxi driver about an asset, right? And like the bubble CR, that's what they used to say. Well, for crypto, sometimes it's getting text from a friend. Right. So far, I've only gotten text from people who joined crypto in 2017 and then became like dormant and were sleepy. And now they're waking up. Right. I haven't gotten text from, which I received a lot of these in 2017, the guy that is friends with the guy I know who heard that I know something about crypto and has this question about
an ICO
buying. Buying Tron, right? When I get those texts, that's when I start to be like, okay. Right. Again, that's just a heuristic. But another thing I hear sometimes, this is more from the Bitcoin only crowd, but it's this. I'm not interested in ETH until it's a globally adopted reserve asset. Everything's solved about scalability, and DeFi runs the financial infrastructure for the world. This goes to your point about, the text you received about some people, they just are in this crypto paralysis of, oh my God, should I buy or not? It's like so volatile. What if they try to time their buys rather than just taking action and jumping in, right? And like they'll hear something about some risk to ETH2, for example, maybe not being able to pull it off, or maybe there's lots of concerns about ETH2, and they wait until all of not only the risk has been boiled out of the asset class, but all of the upside has been boiled out of the asset class too. It's like my retort to that is like, if you're waiting for Ether and DeFi to become the financial system for the world, and for like central banks to buy into it and issue all of their too late, you're essentially waiting until ETH is 50K in price, right? All the opportunity has been boiled out of it. So people also don't understand this kind of risk reward dynamic of, you just got to take action sometimes if you believe in it. I'm sure you have friends like that.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I was like this back in 2017, where like, I came in the middle to late 2017. So late to the show, right? Like I was the retail pleb being dumped on. It was the rite of passage. And I'm past that point now. And so I would see people that I met who bought OMG which was like the 2017 token at like a 20 cents. And then it pumped all the way to $20. And so what I would do is I would like backtrack and be like, well, if I had deployed my capital at these prices, I would have gotten this rich, right? But you only ever get the full upside of the exposure if you purchase it immediately, right? You have to be owning it all the way through. And that's why like I was totally okay suffering through a goddamn 3-year long bear market where I saw my Ether holdings fall down to $82 because I know that if I sell, I'm going to have to buy in later in order to access the upside. So why would I even sell now? You have to hold the asset for the entire lifespan of its cycle in order to access the full upside of its potential, right? Like that's why you bag hold during bear markets, because you don't know when it starts to go up, but you do want the full exposure of when it goes up. And so when it finally does go up, you finally feel validated. That's kind of what I feel a little bit like right now when I watch the price of Ether like bust through 500 and scream to 600. I feel a little bit like that. Like imagine if I had tried to time that. Like no, I'm just going to make sure I gain all of the exposure to it by just being a bag holder.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's still, we think, probably early in the cycle, but I mean, to be honest, it would have been way better for you to buy ETH when it dropped below 100, right? Just like in March, right? So that conviction is super important, and it sort of separates the tourists from the believers. And I think there have been a lot of people during the crypto winter, and this has been a particularly grueling winter for Ether, right? A lot of people left, but a strong community stuck around, and it's fun to celebrate that. I think that there's some rewards there on that side of things. David, maybe we should end this with kind of like super bull case for Ether. I've got a few ideas on that.
Sure.
But where do you think the market is taking us next? We said before that this is 2016. Right. So it's a setup for next year, which is 2017. I still think that's largely directionally correct. Right. What's your take? What's the next step of this bull market here?
So if I want to put on my maximally bullish hat, which I usually put on every single morning, I would claim that this cycle is going to be a longer cycle than last time. And that's what we've seen with Bitcoin. These cycles get longer and drawn out. And so saying like, oh, we're in 2016 and next year's 2017, well, we need to fit an extra year or maybe even 2 years in that time frame somewhere. Because these cycles are getting longer, and there are just when we capture the institutional side of the world, institutions are by definition bureaucracies, which are big ships, which have lots of money that pivot that ship really slowly. And so I could imagine a very long, slow, drawn out bull market where capital just constantly just trickles into the space over and over and over 2 years, right? And so like maybe even longer, right? And so that's why I'm particularly bullish on the concept of Ethereum 2.0 being in development in parallel to the Ethereum 1 DeFi chain. Because like that sentiment is that 2 to 3 year long phase of getting Ethereum 2.0 out the door, I think is going to run in parallel with a 2 to 3 year long bull market. So I think 2017 as a year could be 2 years long for us. And it's just a 2 year long and this is something that I put out on the Market Monday yesterday, and it's something I've been chewing a lot on my head in my head recently, is like the bull markets of this industry and why we were able to just like put a clear like bookends as to when bull markets happen and when they stop happening, at least in hindsight. The bull markets happen when the world around crypto turns its attention back to crypto and reprices the whole entire industry all in one go, right?
Yep.
And so like it's a huge lagging effect. Like the last 3 years of crypto, the attention of the world has not been on crypto. And so that's when prices bleed out and decline. Now the world is turning the attention back to crypto, saying, oh, there's a lot more here than the last time I was paying attention to crypto. I'm going to price things accordingly. And that's when Ether price goes from 200 to 600 in like 2.5 months, right? Like it happens really fast. And right now is when the eyes of the world are turning towards crypto and repricing this entire industry. And I think it's going to be a 2 year long like repricing event.
I actually agree with you on that. I do think we've used the analogy of 2017, but it's probably the case that 2017 is sort of an analogy that stretches maybe multiple years, right? I guess I'll leave with these thoughts. This was kind of my take on what things could look like in that 2-year time horizon, and looking at it from how much ETH supply is actually locked, right? Mm-hmm. So we've been talking a lot about kind of the demand side, and these things are certainly triggers. But I also think what's coming in the next 2 years, again, not right away, this is the first milestone of ETH2, is a big change in the supply economics of Ether as an asset. So let's say you get 25% ETH locked up by true believers who are in this for decades, and they're here to stack ETH, right? And then you've got 20% locked in DeFi. Well, is that crazy? At right now, it's about 6 to 7% ETH supply locked in DeFi, right? And at the beginning of 2017, it was 0. So could that double? That's not crazy. As the institutions sort of come, and as DeFi projects do well, they might consider locking a portion of their capital into balance sheets. These DAOs are essentially a new type of crypto capital formation tool. They're like a corporation. So that could take up, say, 15%. Grayscale is already at 2 to 3% of all ETH that's locked. Right. Could that rise to 5%? If you get 3% in staking, and we're already at 0.5% right now at the very start, well, all of that, you add that up, and you've got already 70% of ETH supply pretty much locked. And then what's going to happen, David, is in 2020, when the proof of work chain merges with the proof of stake chain, which is about to be launched, you get annual ETH issuance going from 4.5% to something near 0, right? This will be less than 1%. Possibly, it could even graduate to the negative territory, where we're actually burning more ETH than we are issuing and minting. So what happens when you get demand but no supply? That's a supply side crisis. And for a scarce asset like ETH, the only direction when that happens is up. That, I think, is like a 2-year bull case or a 3-year bull case for what could happen to ETH, the asset. And if that's the case, we're not going to be staying at 600 for very long. That's my take.
Yeah, this is absolutely the right formula. I would tweak these numbers a little bit. I don't think you actually get to claim that there's never such thing as never sellers, because there's literally a price for everything, right? And so, like, yeah, I'm a never seller because I could never really reasonably see Ether at like $1 million per token. But it's like, well, if you offer them $1 million per Ether, they're probably going to sell.
Let me ask you this, though, David. Sure. So what happens, though, if your ETH is going up in value, right? But also your ability to generate wealth on top of that ETH goes up in value too, right? So the ability to, rather than sell your ETH, why don't you just take like a very small portion of your supply and take out a loan on it, a collateralized loan on it? Or why don't you just put some of that ETH, David, into DeFi or into staking? And then instead of selling, you can earn a nice 5 to 10% return off that ETH, and you don't have to sell. This is kind of back to the Neo taking the pill, right? Like when this is all fully matured, you won't have to sell your Ether, because it becomes part of the fabric of the economy and of the financial system. So I agree with you. There's a price for everything, of course, but there might be some never sellers out there. At least a portion of your proceeds you might never sell because of this.
Yeah, I haven't considered DeFi as infrastructure to help support you not to have to sell your Ether and be able to access liquidity from that in different mechanisms. That's an interesting take. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Okay. So maybe we can generate like a cohort of like never sellers who like they still get the value out of their Ether, but they do it from like loans rather than selling.
Yes.
One thing that you did not, I think you really priced down the supply of Ether in staking. I think you said like 3 to 5%. I think that's going to be something like 10 to 15%. I think that's going to be a lot higher than that.
Yeah. So these numbers, play with these numbers as you will. These are all supply sinks, I think, for
and then
Ether,
burn
the
a
asset.
fuck ton with EIP 1559.
Which is going to be native to
native,
ETH2. And we will see. All right, David, I've gotten all the my bullish feelings out on this podcast, so I'm feeling like it's pretty complete. Anything else you want to say?
Nope. I think we should wrap this up. This is as bullish episodes as they come.
All right, guys, risks and disclaimers. Of course, we are bullish on these assets, but this is not financial advice, not at all. ETH is risky. So is crypto. So is DeFi. You could lose what you're putting in. We're headed west, though. This is the frontier. It's not for everyone. But thanks for joining us on episode 24 of State of the Nation. We are triumphant this week.